Hello, everyone. I'm Amy Miller, hopping on live today. If you are joining live, thank you for joining. And if you are watching the replay, great to have you here as well. Today, I want to talk about, what I think is the most important aspect of leadership, and that is self-leadership. Because we can't lead others effectively, or I should say, we can lead others more effectively when we first learn to lead ourselves. And self-leadership doesn't always start with confidence. It starts with awareness. And once we have awareness around what's really going on, around how we're really feeling, what we really need, well, then we can see choices. We can see our different choices, and then we can respond versus react. And so that's what this conversation is about today. I often, in working with leaders for decades in recruiting and now in leadership coaching and in workshops, I often hear leaders, effective leaders, talking about meeting people where they are. And that can be challenging to do, but it's very important. And it's a great practice for strong leaders. In order to help someone move themselves from here to there, well, we first have to start here, where they are. But let's take that concept one layer deeper and consider whether that's something that, as a leader or as a leader of your own life, if you're not leading a team, is that something that you are doing for yourself? Meeting yourself where you are, which could be different from day to day, from moment to moment. And that can look like giving yourself some grace rather than pushing through when you actually need a break. It can look like pausing to recognize what it is you need. It can look like paying attention to an uncomfortable emotion, which is data that keeps showing up, trying to get your attention. Well, how often do we slow down long enough to pay attention to what's trying to get our attention and give it our focus so that we can actually learn, gather the information that that signal is trying to point toward. So I want you to think about that. If you're someone who works to consciously make an effort to meet others where they are you doing that for yourself? Or are you sometimes just pushing through when you have all of these demands, which can be a normal, natural tendency, especially for leaders, because you've got a lot of people depending on you. It's not just yourself, it's your team. And I notice this myself sometimes too. I've gotten much better because I'm consciously making an effort, and that's through awareness, to just notice what I need when I need it, and rather than push through when I'm already running on empty, and then maybe getting frustrated with myself for not being where I want to be, for not moving faster. I've started to, or not started to, I've been doing it for a while now, but it's always a practice. We're never perfect. There's always more room to go, more room to grow. So I'm working on it daily, just as I'm sharing with you here, and I'll share some personal examples. But we can normalize pushing through when we are running on empty, and then we can beat ourselves up about it later. And who does this serve? It certainly doesn't serve you or me or the people that we are trying to deliver for and or lead. So I'm someone that has very high standards for myself. And so I will tend to I'll tend to be overconfident in what I'm actually capable of in that day, what I'm able to accomplish in that day, in that week. So I'll set a lot of stretch goals. And an example, on the weekends, in addition to my, we got to live our lives, but I'll tend to put a lot on my plate that I plan to get done. And so that's what this Saturday had looked like for me. I had a lot of business focus and creative, that's all together, tasks that I really wanted to get done to help me move the needle. But then there's also life. You got to clean, you have to do your laundry, you have to make time to walk through the park and go to yoga and enjoy life and give yourself the things that you need. And so I had done all of the personal and life stuff, and half my day was gone on Saturday. And I started to feel a little bit of angst, not full on anxiety, but some pressure, and maybe even a feeling of disappointment because I wasn't where I wanted to be. I wasn't meeting the standard that I had given myself for for myself that day. And half the day was gone. It was late afternoon, early evening. And with that pressure, I could have been inclined to push through and keep going. But what I did was I paused for a moment, because I've gotten very good at this. This is something that I encourage my clients to do, and I invite you to do it as well. Pay attention to how you are feeling in the moment, because your emotions are pointing you toward what you need. And when we take a step back and listen and hear ourselves and what we need, well, then we can give ourselves what we need. Then we can prioritize what is meaningful. Then we can time box more effectively. Then we can show up for our team and others in our lives more presently. And but when we're putting this pressure on ourselves, there can be that natural inclination to push through. So here I was, late afternoon, early evening on a Saturday, and I hadn't, for me, morning and afternoon, that's my peak hours where I want to get my focus work done. But I had done all of my other things. And so I was feeling this pressure, and I could have just been decided to, okay, well, let me just get started on my core focus work now. But instead I caught myself and I listened, because what was my body was telling me was I was physically exhausted. I had a very physically active day, and I didn't have the energy in that moment to start on the important work that I had put on my calendar for myself that day. So instead, I sat down. I put my feet up. I listened to what my body was telling me it needed, which was to rest. And just in that moment, all it was a moment, a pause. I took the pressure off without even having to make an effort to do that. I just sat down for a moment to let myself take a breath and relax. And then what happened is I became clearer. Clarity came in that moment, because I took the pressure off of trying to force a solution, trying to push through, trying to solve a problem. And I also set a goal for myself to read every day for an hour every day. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But most of the time it does. And it had not happened on Saturday. And then I sat down with my feet up. My cat jumped onto my lap, and then I noticed, oh, my Kindle's right here. And I just started reading Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. A leader in my network recommended that book. I just started it. It's phenomenal. Absolutely loving it so far. But so I read for 45 minutes, and I could have been, putting pressure on myself, feeling pressure, feeling more anxiety that I was not taking action on the important tasks that I had scheduled for myself that day. But instead I read. And then what happened is I became clear. And with that clarity, I was then able to tackle a lot of the work and get a lot done with less effort, rather than if I had tried to push through. And so that's just one example. I ended up focusing for 5 hours of just straight focus, and I got a lot done, and it felt really, really good. Now, if I had tried to push through with unclear thinking, the product would not have been as strong. I'm certain of it. And then, so another example, so when we can feel this instinct to push through, when our body is giving us a signal that we need something else. And anytime we ignore that signal, it could be an uncomfortable emotion, it could be maybe a boundary that needs to be set, it could be that we're tired. When we ignore that, what we're doing is we're ignoring ourselves, essentially. And then we get further and further away from listening to our instincts, which are guiding you toward the direction that is going to be the right direction for you. It's not giving you all of the answers in that moment, but it's guiding your direction. And when we constantly ignore that, we get further and further away from trusting ourselves and trusting our instincts. So just something as simple as, let me take a breath. Oh my gosh, I'm really exhausted. If I try to push through with this heavy cognitive required work right now, it's not going to be that good. Okay, well, what do I need? I need to just sit here for a minute. And then with that awareness, with that clarity and awareness, then you guide your next step, and it can be much more impactful. So another example, I do these Empower Hours. I work to do them weekly, working to improve. So always open to feedback and comments and topics if you ever have a topic that you want me to talk on. But what I'll do to prepare is, as I'm reading. I love to read books and HBR and listen to HBR podcasts throughout the week. And as I'm talking with people in my network and clients and dealing with my own, listening to my own needs and challenges, I will come up with ideas and topics and then draft an outline and then research them or read more to further develop my research. And anyhow, so I'll be preparing little by little throughout the week so that as we get closer to Monday, I'm ready to go. But on occasion, and this happened today, I will develop an outline and a topic that I'm really excited about. And then when it's time to do the talk, I won't be feeling it sometimes. I'll just feel like I'll notice that my energy it's draining me rather than giving me energy. And rather than try to push through and put out a product that's maybe not that helpful, maybe not that great, I'm not saying it always is, there's room to improve, but I will listen to how I'm feeling and I'll figure out another topic that is resonating with me. And I'll do that instead. And I'll get energy rather from doing the video rather than feeling super drained and uncomfortable during the conversation. So it's another example. So I invite you to pay attention to how you're feeling and notice what's giving you energy and when you're feeling drained. Notice when you have an uncomfortable emotion. Notice when something is bugging you. Notice when something is giving you energy. Notice when something makes you feel bad. And then dig deeper there because there's information there. And then this is how we overcome our challenges faster and how we lead ourselves better. This is how you meet yourself where you are. You can't meet yourself where you are if you're not paying attention to how you're actually feeling and then honoring what you need by giving yourself what you need. It's very hard I don't think it's possible actually, to prioritize what is meaningful when you can't identify what is meaningful. And we can't do that when we're not listening to ourselves. And the more you do that for yourself, the more you can do that for your team. For example, if you notice that when you're feeling depleted, you're showing up in a way that is not how you want to show up. Well, then if that's happening for someone else in your life or on your team, you'll notice that for them too. And then you'll be more informed on how you can help them. Or at the very least, you won't take it personally if someone's not showing up as their best for you. So how can we lead others in this way when we first haven't met ourselves where we are? So how do we do this? How can you start meeting yourself where you are? Very simple, but not necessarily easy to do until we start to make it a habit. And it just takes a moment. And what you do first is you just pause. A lot of times we are pushing through trying to find a solution. If you think back to moments in your life, or maybe you're experiencing something right now where you have felt really frustrated and you're trying to figure out, sometimes even to force a solution. Well, what happens? It doesn't work. And I'll share an example maybe in a bit if we have time where I can think of a lot of past times like this myself, but where I'm trying to force a solution, maybe sometimes even for years, I'm really giving a lot of effort. And then I just stopped. I stopped trying to find an answer. And because when we're trying to force a solution and find an answer and it's not working, what we're creating is a lot of noise. What we're listening to and hearing is a lot of noise. And so we can't see to become aware of the solution, the idea, which becomes our first step when we have all of this noise in the background, which is created by stress and pressure, or vice versa. Daniel Goleman talks about this in his amygdala hijacking theory and research, which is basically our mind cannot access logical reasoning and thinking, our idea, our first step, the solution, when we are in the mode where we're scanning for danger, where we're scanning for threat. And we can feel like when we're under stress, under pressure, I need to move. I need to do something now. It's uncomfortable to stay still. But that's not where we're going to access our clearer thinking. So instead, how do you access your clearer thinking? You take a moment to get calm, to take a deep breath. It's not forcing calm, it's just pausing and noticing how you're feeling. even with just that moment of noticing, I feel really exhausted right now, or my brain feels tired right now, or I am really frustrated. What is it that's getting under my skin? Or why did this thing that this person just said trigger me? It's just pausing to notice these feelings and then going a one layer deeper, getting curious. Okay, where's that coming from? Why is it there? This can surface root issues, and it can also surface ideas and solutions. So because what you're doing is you're taking the pressure off. When you name a problem, instead of trying to force a solution, you take the pressure off. And then without the pressure, you become clearer. You can access clearer thinking. Aha, that's the answer. This has happened for me so many times, and it's so cool. Solving big problems in like 1 minute or 2 minutes. Because I'll notice, recently there was a problem that I was dealing with that was getting increasingly bigger. And I tend not to stress too much because I know I'm going to solve the problem. I have a history of doing that. You likely do too if you're leading a team. But when you've done that enough times, then you can tend to not stress so much because you trust yourself. You know you'll figure it out. So this is how I operate, how I self-lead. But I let the problem get my attention, and I said to myself, this is getting bigger. You're going to need to do something about this. You're going to need to take an action. And I thought, okay, well, I could do X. I'm not going to share exactly what the problem was. And then instantly I knew, okay, but that's not enough. That's not substantial enough to solve this problem. But then from there, that clarity, I accessed even clearer thinking. And then I had my idea. I'm like, oh, this is what you can do. And then I did the thing. Now the thing itself took a little bit of time to get into motion, but it solved the problem. But I could have decided or subconsciously just kept operating through stress and pressure and not access that clearer thinking and dug myself into a deeper problem. So the very first step is to just take the pressure off of yourself. Instead of ignoring the problem, focus right on it. Instead of searching for a solution, just acknowledge the problem. Could be that you're tired. It could be that you've got a big problem to solve and you don't know what to do. Just even saying that itself takes the pressure off. And then from there, you've accessed clearer thinking and an idea is going to come in. It might be that moment. It might be a little bit later. But you've already done the hard work of acknowledging the problem. And going back to self-leadership, if you can't do this for yourself, how can you do this for others? So if there's something in your life, personal or professional, that keeps trying to get your attention, that's bugging you, that doesn't feel very good, well, let it get your attention. I want to share another example. This one was pretty cool. So I mentioned I like reading and listening to HBR. And I was listening to an HBR podcast over the weekend while I was cleaning. I was getting some of my other research done. This is a good time to multitask when you're doing something that doesn't require a lot of high cognitive activity. Well, then you can listen and absorb and learn. So that's what I was doing. And this particular podcast I didn't like. But not only did I not like it, I didn't like it because I wasn't really getting anything from it. I didn't feel like there was anything particularly, I didn't feel like I was learning anything from it. And so then I felt annoyed. Okay, but why do I feel annoyed? Maybe I already know this particular topic well enough that it's not really helping me. But why did that annoy me? And instead of just switching off the podcast, I listened to the whole thing in case there was something for me to learn. But I stuck with, okay, I'm annoyed right now. And so I took pressure off myself by just letting the uncomfortable feeling exist. And then I took it a step deeper because I'm used to doing this for decades now. I'm very curious by nature, and that curiosity started as a kid by getting curious about myself and how I was feeling the way I was feeling. And this led to so many great things for just a lot of knowledge. And so I like to share that with others now, and combined with additional research that I do. But I sat with that. Okay, I'm feeling annoyed. Well, why am I feeling annoyed? Where is this coming from? And I kept going deeper with it. And then what ended up happening is I was able to create a lot of content from it, some video shorts, which you'll see maybe later this week. So that was really cool. So this is an example of what you can, what just taking a moment to pause and first feel the feeling, take the pressure off by letting it exist, and then getting curious. So that's the first step, is to notice. This is how you do this, how you start self-leadership, by meeting yourself where you are. You acknowledge where you are, how you're feeling. You pause and you feel the feeling. And then 2, you get curious. You go deeper with it. And that's either going to help you create something, help you see a solution, get a new idea, uncover something that's been maybe a persistent challenge. So that's what I did. I didn't beat myself up or judge myself for feeling annoyed. I instead I noticed that I was ignored, and then I got curious about what is creating this feeling. And the more you practice awareness around these types of these situations, your emotions, then you can not only pay attention to what you need and give yourself what you need and solve your problems faster, but you can yes, see solutions faster, but then you can help others do the same as well. And then what happens is life gets easier, the work life and personal life, because you're not carrying around all of this baggage, internal baggage or emotional labor. When we're holding on to emotions rather than dealing with them, we're either creating a missed opportunity or a prolonged solution that's waiting to get our attention. So how can you, and then step 3 is to make a choice. So first you pause and you notice, and then you get curious, and then you choose. In my leadership coaching, the framework that I teach is to pause, acknowledge, clarify, and lead. And this is the same kind of thing here, just in a little bit of a different context. First you pause and you pay attention when you have some resistance, when you have an uncomfortable emotion, when maybe a boundary needs to be set. But first you have to feel the feeling. So pause, and then you acknowledge, okay, this is how I'm feeling. And then you clarify, and that could be clarifying within yourself. Wait, okay, what's really going on here? Where is this coming from? Or with the other person, maybe by repeating back what they said, because you need that moment sometimes when we're in that high stakes, high pressure moment, whether it's with ourselves feeling the pressure or in a difficult conversation or dynamic. We need a moment sometimes for our brain to stop scanning for threat, to calm down and access clearer logical thinking. And then you can lead your next step from there. You can redirect the conversation. You can say, let me think on that. Or you can give yourself what you need, which sometimes is something that seems very small, like my body is really tired. I need to kick my feet up and rest. And then that created awareness, presence, and then awareness, which then led to 5 hours of solid work getting my things done, my stuff done over the weekend. So you can start this, a way to start implementing this practice for yourself, to acknowledge, notice, get curious, and then choose your next action from there, is to start at the very start of your day. When you first wake up in the morning, notice and check in with yourself on how you are feeling. And then whatever it is, get curious, whatever is getting your attention. It could be something that excites you, that you feel curious about. It could be a persistent problem that keeps showing up at work that you haven't solved yet. And maybe the reason you haven't solved it is because you're not letting it fully get your attention by focusing on the problem rather than the solution. I've shared this before, but I love it so much. I'm just going to share it again real quick. I'm a writer. I also write screenplays, and so I read screenwriting books, and there's one called How to Write a Movie in 21 Days, and the author, Vicki King, talks about this. She says in the movie, so pay attention next time you're watching a movie, and in your own life too, you'll notice that the protagonist or yourself, the main character in your life, sometimes we're beating our head up against a wall trying to force a solution, and nothing is working. We've tried all avenues. And so what works is when we give up. I'm tired, I'm taking a nap, or I don't know. I don't know what the solution is, but here's the problem. There's so much magic in just focusing on, here's the problem, because it takes the pressure off. And there have been so many times in my life where I've done this, and then a moment later, I have the solution. And maybe it was sometimes years that I was searching for that solution. And the reason this works is because you have the answer already within yourself. Sometimes it takes coaching or consulting, someone asking you questions that you haven't yet asked yourself to draw the answer out of you that you already have. And this is from pattern recognition. That's what your intuition is, decades of information that you already know that when you allow yourself to access it by staying present as much as possible, you can access that information quickly and solve your solutions faster, which may not be the end result, but it's the direction. Anyhow, that's I love that part of the book, Vicki King's book. And so I think it applies here. So I just wanted to share that. So I would love to hear from you. If you're thinking about trying out this framework, notice, get curious, and then choose, or pause, acknowledge, clarify, lead if you're in a conversation. Which one sounds the hardest for you? Giving yourself a moment, stopping for just a moment to pause and notice? Or is it digging deeper and allowing yourself to get curious? Sometimes it's uncomfortable to feel how we feel, but the thing is, our problems get bigger the longer we ignore them or don't give them enough attention. I bet you the easiest step is going to be to choose, because you've already done the hard work once you stop and you pause and you notice. And then this is probably the hardest. You get curious, you dig deeper to see where it's coming from, because this involves taking responsibility. Because if something isn't working for you in your life, on your team, in your work, well, the only thing we have control over is ourselves. So if we can discover what it is within ourselves that's causing us to show up the way that we're showing up, and we want to change that, well, now you've just figured out how to make a change. You just choose a different action than what you've been doing. So the hardest part is to get curious, I think, but I'd like to hear from you what you think. The choosing can be pretty easy because you've already done the hard work, and then the solution pops into your head. Oh, this is the step. This is what I need to do. Here's my solution. Boom. And then you can do what you do best. Then you can go. Then you can move into action. So it can be uncomfortable to not move into action when we feel pressure. We want to move. We want to solve the problem. We want to react. Oh my gosh, this is happening. And it is a practice. This is something that I'm working on as well. I shared some examples here, positive examples, but I'll share one from a couple weeks ago when I thought that I woke up to a fire drill. But then instead of pausing a moment to access clearer thinking, I acted from not clear thinking. And what I did was I created a fire drill that wasn't a fire drill. And then I added 2 more hours of work onto my day, undoing what I did. Now, had I taken my own advice, which is to pause, take a breath. And sometimes when we don't know what to do in that moment, the action is to do nothing. And then I would have accessed my clearer thinking and realized, oh, it's actually not a problem. Now, I don't beat myself up about that. This is just useful information. It's data, and I can make a different choice next time. So recapping, the first person that you have the opportunity to lead every day, and the most important, is yourself. And you may not always feel confident in leading yourself in that moment, but you're going to get the confidence through awareness, because awareness guides the step that makes sense for you. Awareness creates that clarity. And when we feel clear, then we can feel confident taking an action. So I hope that you got some value from the video today. This was, as I shared earlier in the video, not the topic that I was originally going to speak on, but that other topic. I'm still excited about it, but it felt too daunting today. And so this came up for me, and I was able to put it together really quickly. And this is how this can work, this process. When you pause and you give yourself a moment to acknowledge how you're feeling, you get present, you get curious, you go a little bit deeper, and then your direction, which may be your first step, surfaces, and then you can take it. Thanks for watching. If this is something that you are working through, you notice that sometimes you push harder before getting clearer, I'd love to continue the conversation, and that could be here next Monday in Power Hour. I try to start on time. I was a little bit late today. Or if it's through coaching, or maybe you're interested in a workshop with your team, you're welcome to reach out. And you can reach me at amyleemiller.com, and I'll look forward to any comments or questions. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next week.